Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Danny Beasley Show. This is a show about current events in the news and also what is and how it relates to biblical predictions and also biblical principles. Today, we're going to be examining the Memorial Day history as to how the weekend came about and uh, and how the day was actually voted in by Congress and when it was done. So we're going to move straight on to that story. In the news right now, it's 8:43 a.m. On 5/23/2013. It's on a Thursday. No reports of any severe weather that I'm aware of on the national level. On the local level, we're expected 40% chance of rain in South Carolina today. Um, we're getting into the Memorial Day history, and it happened on April 25th, 1866 in Columbus, Mississippi. A women's association decorated the graves of both the Union and Confederate soldiers. In a nation trying to find a way to move on after a war that had split the country, states, communities, and families, this gesture was welcomed as a way to lay the past to rest while honoring those that had fought on either side. So that's what the root of Memorial Day is, and it can be taken further. It says while Veterans Day is in November to honor those that served their nation in war, Memorial Day is for those who died in military service. This all-American holiday has its roots and practice of what I had just said. Uh, the soldiers that had died on both sides in the Civil War is also called Decoration Day. Memorial Day was celebrated on May 30th after 1868. Since 1971, it has been celebrated on the last month in May, though a few states have kept to the May 30th date. Um, Moving on in the news, we've got Obama. President Obama is going to address drones and Gitmo today in a security speech. Um, you may want to pick that up. He's going to address some of the thornier aspects of national security policy, including drone strikes and the prison at Guantanamo Bay and the dire threats that Americans continue to face, even from fellow citizens. On the eve of the president's speech at the National Defense University, the Obama administration reveals for the first time that a fourth American citizen has been killed in secretive drone strikes abroad. The killings of the other three Americans in counter operations since 2009 were known before a letter from Attorney General Eric Holder to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Patrick Leahy acknowledged the four deaths. Obama's speech is expected to reaffirm his national security priorities, from homegrown terrorists to killer drones to the enemy combatants held at the military-run detention center at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, but makes no sweeping policy announcements. The White House has offered few clues on how the president will address questions that have dogged his administration for years, and critics say that given foreign allies mixed signals about U.S. intentions in some of the world's most volatile areas. So that's what we have in the news for President Obama today on his agenda. Um, and as we move away from that, we're looking at what is happening at the Boy Scouts today. They're going to have a vote on, gays being allowed into the Boy Scouts, and being allowed to be um, over them with scout leaders. Well, no, I take that back. They're going to retain the ban on adult homosexual scout leaders and allow homosexual scouts in. With the historic vote on the agenda, it could change the iconic organization's central old policy and allow Homosexuals, some 1,400 Boy Scout leaders from across the nation who formed the National Council, has gathered in Grapevine, Texas for this meeting. The final vote is scheduled for Thursday on a proposal that would allow openly homosexual scouts but retain the ban on adult homosexual scout leaders. In the BSA, the official voice of the Scout survey, which indicates the change in policy would prompt a mass exodus of scouts and leaders. Respondents support the current policy by a supermajority of 61% to 34%. And the total Scout count is more than 2.7 million members and more than 1 million volunteers. Resolution is a revision of the proposal issued in January that would have allowed local troops to decide whether or not to accept homosexual members and leaders. So let's be thinking of the Boy Scouts at this time, because we don't want to lose that organization. That is a grassroots organization for people, and we cannot afford to lose it. Moving on in the news, there was a YouTube sensation, Zach Zobich, 18-year-old Minnesota teen who was dying from a cancer, rare form of bone cancer, and he did a farewell song, and it became a YouTube sensation. He has died after his 3.5-year fight with bone cancer. And the name of that song was Clouds, in case you want to look it up and listen to it. And that would be on youtube.com. Today we're in the news. Janet Jackson is dating a billionaire boyfriend. She went to the Middle East and performed, and immediately was smitten by this billionaire who has a personal wealth exceeding more than $1 billion this year. And the 47-year-old Janet Jackson is enamored by this guy and has been, treated, with kid gloves, so to speak. I don't want to use that term because it may be changed, to someone else's meaning, and that could be left for interpretation. But Janet reportedly made $458 million from various concerts and $304 million from movie roles, including Eddie Murphy's comedies. And now she joins an elite club of celebrity billionaires, including talk show queen Oprah Winfrey and legendary film director Steven Spielberg and Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. As well as her own fortune, Janet shares the wealth of her billionaire tycoon husband, Wissam Al Mana. So she's been in the news and probably will continue to be so. Don't know what the future holds for her right now, but anyway, that's what's been going on with her. There was an attack by two Islamic men in England several days ago. They found two men with knives and meat cleavers, and they had sliced this man up like they had butchered, that they had butchered and cut to the bones, with two large knives, and that the man had deceased. But the attack occurred in the UK, and it was in England, and it left a UK soldier dead on the streets of London. And it could be worse if it wasn't for the actions of a 48-year-old single mom, the UK Telegraph reports. and her name is Ingrid Loye Kennett, and she spoke about speaking directly with the suspected killers in the attacks immediate aftermath, and she talked the attackers into stopping their attack and what they were doing, so that they could send this man to the hospital. But obviously, he didn't make it. She said all she could see was a man covered with blood, and um, she asked them why they had done it, and they said that because he's killed Muslim people in Muslim countries. He was a British soldier, and I said, uh, really? And he says, I killed him because he kills Muslims, and I am fed up with people killing Muslims in Afghanistan. They have nothing to do there. So then she spotted a second guy behind him, and she says they weren't high on drugs, they were not drunk. Um, Apparently, the second guy looked like he was distressed and upset, but he was in full control of his decisions and ready to do what he needed to do or wanted to do. So that was a story coming out of England, and now a story out of Israel. They have discovered a strange object at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. It's a massive submerged structure, and it stumps the Israeli archaeologists because they haven't seen anything like it before. It's in the Sea of Galilee, and the researchers are left stranded on dry land wondering what it is. It's a monumental structure made of boulders and stones, the diameter of 230 feet. And now the archaeologists are trying to raise money to allow them to have access to the submerged stones. They're saying it's very enigmatic, it's interesting, but the bottom line is we don't know when it's from, we don't know what it's connected to, we don't know its function. And Danny Nadell, an archaeologist from the University of Haifa, who is one of several researchers studying the discovery, says we only know it's there and it's huge and it's unusual. So the only way the archaeologists can access the structure is through an underwater excavation, and that's a painstakingly slow process. It can cost thousands of dollars, and they said if an excavation can take place, archaeologists said that they believe it would be the first in the Sea of Galilee, an ancient lake that boasts historical remnants spanning thousands of years and is in the setting of many biblical scenes. In contrast, Israeli researchers have carried out many other excavations in the Mediterranean and Red Seas. So much of the limited knowledge about the structure comes from sonar scan about 10 years ago, a decade ago, and initial dives disclosed that it was asymmetrical, made of basalt boulders, and that a fish team around the structure. In other words, it's almost like a coral reef. It's attracted to life, and the life revolves around it. It's a cone-shaped structure. It's found at the depth between 3 and 9 and 40 feet beneath the surface, and it's about 1,600 feet from the sea's southwestern shore, and its base is buried under sediment. They conclude that it's man-made, made of stones, and it's originated nearby and weighs approximately 60,000 tons. And the authors write of it, it's indicative of a complex, well-organized society with planning skills and economic ability. The rest is a mystery. Moving on to our next story. We have the media finally admitting, and this is from blacklistednews.com, the media is now admitting that the government has been subverting the news by controlling the news, and that the news that you've been getting is not based on what they would normally publish. So they admit that their own reports are nothing more than a government-controlled talking points and not the product of a free and open press. Well, Russia once had a